I'd like to call the special called meeting of the South San Antonio Independent School District to order. Today's date is Wednesday, June 6, 2018, and the time is 6 o'clock p.m. Could we have roll call, please, Mrs. Martinez?
Mrs. Angelina Ostiguin.
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.
Here.
Mr. Edward Munguia.
Here.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra. Here. Mrs. Connie Pardo.
Present.
Mr. Luis Rodriguez.
Present.
Mrs. Edla Flores.
Okay, we're now going to go into the Pledge of Allegiance, Texas Pledge, prayer, call to action.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Heavenly Father, bless us as we meet this evening. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Amen. Our new call to action.
All students enjoy successful education experiences, empowering them to make decisions while enriching their lives in the future they create.
before I go to closed session, we will have citizens to be heard, but only during the discussion and possible action, agenda item number 1. So we will allow individuals to sign up. Okay, we'll get that for you. Okay? And the board will now go into closed session. The board will return to open session and take appropriate action, if any, on items discussed in closed session. No action will be taken in closed session. Further, board members are reminded that all items discussed in closed session must remain confidential so as to avoid liability to the district. The board will consider and discuss the following items. Closed meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. And the time is 6:02 p.m. Thank you. back in open session. The time is 6:50 p.m. and superintendent's remarks. Dr. Savetta.
Thank you, Mr. Seguin. I'd like to start by informing the board and really our community that the school year concluded, of course, at Southside last week. It was a very successful school year. Actually, the last day of school was very non-eventful, which is what you want from the last day of school. Things simply turned out very, very well. As the board knows, we started to receive some of our test scores. They look very positive, especially in the area of students performing at the master's level and on the state accountability. So we're still waiting for, of course, accountability ratings that will come up in August. But overall, I think things are looking good in reference to student performance in the accountability system. My next message is addressed really to our employees and our community. This evening, a few minutes ago, a little while ago, I informed the school board that I intend to finish the remaining tenure of my contract that expires on March 19th of 2019, but I will not be seeking an extension of the contract. Texas A&M College Station has offered me, and I've accepted an opportunity to return to their faculty in the Department of Education Administration and Human Development as a professor of practice. And this appointment will start sometime in the spring of 2019. If ever there was a good time for a transition in leadership, now's the time. We probably have one of the best school boards in San Antonio and possibly the state. Our school board today is recognized by many education leaders in the state as an exemplary board in the implementation of the Lone Star governance model. While our board was once known for its controversy and infighting, it is now recognized as a leader in school governance. And while there's always room for improvement, our students, as I stated earlier, perform very well. They're actually performing at an all-time high as it pertains to state accountability exams. And the percentage of students performing at the master's level of performance in state accountability has increased by double and triple digits this past year. Next week, we graduate most likely the largest graduating class from Southside High School since the opening of the new building about 4 years ago. In a few months, we'll open up next school year, and we'll open up with our middle school academies that have been very well received by our community, our students, and our parents. Actually, next year, we will actually have more sixth graders participating in the middle school academies than students in the traditional sixth grade program. I envision that within 3 years, all middle school students will be enrolled in one of the middle school academies. A year from now, the 2019 graduating class of Southside High School will have approximately 100 students that will be receiving their associate's degrees weeks before they actually graduate from high school. 5 years ago, we used to have 4 different salary schedules to determine how we paid our teachers. Today, we only have one salary schedule. The teachers today earn about 11 to 12% more than they did 5 years ago here at Southside. A beginning teacher at Southside today earns $5,000 more than a beginning teacher did in the 2013-14 school year. And at the top end of experience, a teacher at that level today earns about $6,000 more than what they did 5 years ago. And the gaps that used to exist in comparing our median teacher pay with other school districts in Bexar County no longer exist. Our teacher pay schedule matches or exceeds the median pay of the other school districts we compete with. So now is the time for a new leader to take Southside to new heights. I have encouraged the school board to start their search for my successor as quickly as possible. But this is not a farewell. We still have 9 months of work to do together to ensure that our students are afforded the best educational opportunities. And because of you, the staff, and our community, the future is very bright for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saavedra. Now go to presentation, reports, and discussion. Number 1, report on superintendent constraint 1, progress measures 1.1, 1.2, student teacher absent rate. Board members, this is an LSG item. And
Ms. Costa?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Saavedra, members of the board, You receive weekly attendance reports, I think every Friday in your board updates. And as many of you know, attendance has been a challenge for South San all year. As we present this data, know that we see that this is a systemic challenge. In order for our attendance to significantly improve, we as a community are going to have to work together. As elected board members that represent each of the communities, we're going to need your help. Principals, truancy officers, teachers are making home visits, phone calls, incentives, offering splash days, splash town, free bicycles, field trips. And despite these efforts, we aren't seeing the attendance gains that we had hoped. We will identify root causes and possible solutions, but around attendance, we definitely do not have all the answers, and welcome any and all feedback and suggestions for improvement. I now ask Ms. Denise Orozco, who will share about the student attendance, and Ms. Monica Lopez will then take the presentation to discuss the final constraint on teacher attendance.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to go ahead and remind you of the constraint progress measure. The superintendent will not allow the absence rate to increase or remain the same. I'm going to be presenting 1.1, the student side. The student absence rate will not exceed 6% in 2017-2018. So first, what we're looking at is the yearly average. What I'm showing you right now is what we submit during our PEAM summer submission each year. I'm showing you the last 4 years here. So we have beginning in 14-15, 94.98. Then in 15-16, we have 94.86. Going to 16-17, 94.12. And then right now, 17-18, we're showing 93.36. Now keep in mind, this the 17-18 is not official at this point. Our PEAS report is not due to the DEA until June 21st. So we're still having our data processors correct anything that we found, and they're reviewing all their notes and other data. Now, even though the constraint measure doesn't apply to the individual campuses, it's a district goal, it's really important that we know where each campus is. So what this slide shows you is it shows you the campus percentages. They're ranked from lowest to highest. So if the constraint measure did apply to the campuses, you can see that 3 of them didn't meet the 94%, but 10 of them did, which is a great showing. And then of course at the very end, the dark blue, we have the district average still of the 93.36. And this is why it's important to know where the campuses are, because of how it affects the district at the end. Now, of course, we find ourselves, as usual, where we're going from here, looking forward. So what I'm showing you on this slide is the first one that I showed you about the yearly progress, but we need to start thinking as our goals and constraint measures are being updated, what are we looking to for the future? So for next school year, on the 18-19, we're looking at a goal right now for a 94.36, which is a 1.07% increase. That's a lofty goal, but I really think with some of the innovative ideas that we have, that we want to put forth with the high school, the middle school academies, I was speaking with the truancy coordinator and another member of my team about all the different items that we have in place that we're going forward for the next school year. I think that's a reachable goal. And then for the 19-20, the goal would be 95%, which is a 0.68% increase from the previous year, which is an increase of 1.76% over 2 years, which is like I said, a lofty goal, but I believe in the district and I believe we can do it. Okay, so these aren't all of the root causes possible, but these are some of the areas that we would like to improve upon. So some of the root causes for the student side attendance, we have educational opportunities is something we want to improve it on for both the parents and the schools. For the parents, so that they understand the impact truancy has on both them and their students, and what they can do with us, of course, to minimize those effects. And for opportunities for the schools, we want to educate them as well, as campus staff and administrators, to understand their changing role outside of court referrals. Then, of course, we have consistent district-wide procedures for attendance recovery at all levels. We know, most of us know attendance recovery at the high school secondary level, but making it consistent and have guidelines, district-led guidelines for elementary, middle, and high school. We're looking at that as an area to improve. And then finally, one of the other root causes, a process specific to each school level to address excessive absences and document patterns of student and parent behaviors, because it's not, especially our young ones, it's not just the student behavior, it's the parents as well. So identifying those root causes, we're looking at some recommendations. So for the 18-19 school year, we're looking at creating a district committee to plan and implement monthly or quarterly parent meetings that start at the beginning of the year, not after it gets to a certain point of attendance, but starting at the beginning of the year. We aim to educate parents over items such as like the 90% attendance rule, bringing students back other small items they may not know, like bring them back that same day after a doctor's appointment because that's a medical excuse. Also helping create a more a safer environment for open discussions with the administrators, opportunities to meet with the court representatives and make that not a punitive meeting, but more of just informative. Also holding monthly, quarterly district-led meetings that aim to educate the campus staff about their role and various resources before asking for a court referral. We also are looking at, we're going to task that district committee to design the district-guided attendance recovery plan that I spoke of, specific to elementary, specific to middle, and specific to high school. And then implement a step-by-step plan to ensure all parties, which we have plenty, and this is just a small snippet, the climate transformation PBIS team, the court mediators, the counselors, all the people we're looking at partnering with throughout the next year, make sure that they're involved when a student has excessive absences so we can address those root causes. Okay, so we're going to pass this on to Mrs. Lopez.
Hold on. Before we go on to the teacher absences, we didn't have time to review this.
Okay,
Can I open it up for the board to ask
Sure.
questions on that first
Go.
slide? Okay, board members. So we can go back to
the first one?
sure. Board members, so it's open to ask questions, comments, concerns. I know it's a lot to process, and I'm sorry, staff. So they wanted to make sure that it was compiled correctly before submitted, so I really do apologize I didn't make the board book. So the floor is open. Who would like to begin? Ms. Reba?
I noticed that the biggest problem with attendance is at the high school.
Yes.
Can we go to that slide?
Sure.
Great schools, there you go.
So at 90%, I know we're kicking off the Health Science Academy
Yes,
again
sir.
in full swing this coming year.
Mhm.
But we already have the college,
The
early college. What are your ideas on why the dip is so big at the high school?
Some of these were spurred by several days that were at a low attendance rate. We had a day, one of the ice days, after the ice day was in the low 80s. We had another day that was a testing day where we had great turnout for the actual test takers, like the ninth graders, but then the juniors and seniors, we saw more higher attendance absence rate on them for that day. So that we had several days. It wasn't systemic necessarily at the high school the whole time to drop it. There were several key days that we were looking at that were in the 80s. And so, but we addressed that. Let's take for instance that low attendance day for testing. Once that was identified, which happened to be during the first round of testing, during the English 1 for the freshmen, what we did is we worked with the high school, and what we implemented was when the May testing came around, we sent all of the central office staff to the high school to assist with hallway help, proctoring, relieving teachers testing, so that we could keep the majority of the high school teachers in the classroom instead of assisting with testing. And that was great. That was probably one of our highest attendance rates for the high school testing day. And so that was great because that was algebra, which also was a freshman course. And I mean, the difference between the 2 days. So we're addressing them as those issues come up on what can we do. And they also started implementing some different incentives at the end of the year as well, once they started identifying those, and we saw pretty good attendance from the high school towards the end, so we're going to keep that going for next year.
So we've identified some of the
We have
mistakes we've
identified
corrected.
some, and we actually will be next month, next meeting, some of those weather incidents, we are bringing forward to the next meeting a waiver for your approval to submit to the state to try to ask the state if they could dismiss those days from our record.
Okay. Then, yeah, I totally get the weather, but I would have thought that transferred over all campuses and the high schools just,
Well, they had,
Well,
yeah,
they have those.
they had more days. We also had like a day where we had the gun protest day. So some students didn't come on, we had that in the low 80s on that day as well. And so those,
extra credit for going to a protest, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
same whole ideas.
So the middle school that kind of falls real low in the next category is Dwight. So do we see that with the academies? Because I'm kind of trying to correlate kids wanting to be at school. And so with the academies opening up, I mean, we've gotten a pretty good response for the STEM.
For the STEM.
So you think that kind of fixes
I'm
some
hoping,
of that
yeah.
attendance issue there?
Yeah, Ms. Hernandez is hoping that will help, because she is very, holds her, high expectations, has been really working on her attendance. When we did our evaluation this week, this is, Dr. Spadetta holds all principals accountable for their attendance. And so this does reflect on their evaluation. And she did share about, kids wanting to be there, making sure that their teachers, treating their children where, they want to be in those classrooms. And so, so she did mention that with the academies, but not just the academies, just sixth grade. She's really working on changing the mindsets of some of the teachers that, to make sure they want to be in all classrooms.
Well, yes, I know this is a tough subject, and I didn't have a lot of time to review all this data, obviously just right now. But I know this is a constraint that we felt was important, that's why we kind of put it as a constraint measure. So it's good that we're measuring. I'm glad to see some adjustments already. I appreciate y'all's hard work, but I think we got a lot of work to do in this area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is one that you're absolutely correct. We have a lot of work to do. I gotta tell you, principals worked very hard on this. There wasn't much success, but I do know that they work very hard. The high school specifically has a great impact on these total numbers, because high school enrolls about 28% of the total enrollment for the district. So how the high school goes is basically the way the district goes in reference to this particular measurement. We talked to Dr. Hernandez about that actually today. We talked to Dr. Hernandez about this. Another issue that presents itself as young people become brighter in high school and they learn to manipulate the system. We have a 90% attendance rule, and so we can apply it without any exceptions. But then you also have a lot of students that will eventually drop out of school. It's almost a catch-22. They either allow them the opportunity to make up some of these days on what we call Saturday school, and they might make up 10 absences for one day of Saturday. And so that's not a bad deal for a bright high school kid that says, I'll just show up Saturday and I got 10 days to cut. That happens, But when you take that away, then you have young people that don't meet the passing requirements because of attendance, and then they drop out, they don't pass, and so forth. So it's a catch-22 that we deal with to this.
Okay. So, that took 6 minutes, and so that kind of sets the time frame. You can go a little bit under, but that would be great. Mr. Rodriguez?
Can you go to the slide that has the educational opportunities, or I guess a solution?
The recommendations, yes.
The recommendations,
Uh-huh.
yes. This is something that's going to be brand new, right? I mean, it hasn't been done before.
Not at the level that we're thinking. Like for the district committee, we've had attendance committees meet, but not at the consistency that we're looking at for next year of like monthly meetings, getting together, speaking, being present at the principal leadership meetings, getting on the agenda each time so that the truancy specialist and myself will be able to speak with everyone and really get their feedback on what's happening at each individual campus.
Right. And I like the approach you're taking, because you talked about taking an educational approach to solving this. Do you see any challenge in having the parents participate in something like this? Because a lot of them work, and it's tough for them to get together with them, and it's They could be a challenge for them. I mean, how
And
would
we
you-
have to, yes, definitely, so we have to work around that. We can't just have a morning meeting because
Right.
of school hours. We need to schedule it after school hours as well. And we need to make these opportunities to speak with us, make sure that parents understand these are punitive meetings.
Okay.
These are meetings where we want to be of service, maybe because we haven't had that openness or made it more educational, then perhaps you haven't shared with me what's going on as the counselor or administrator on campus.
Right.
That, oh, okay, now we can address this through PBIS or through the counselor or whatever other community service we have. So my goal would be, it would be more along the lines of like when we have the cafecitos, but during the day, I mean, I never got to attend those for my son because I worked.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, so we need to have them after school as well.
Okay, so you vary,
Yes,
not necessarily,
definitely.
not necessarily
Definitely.
strictly after school or strictly in the morning.
Yeah.
Snacks. Okay. What do you see, I heard a few things, you know, the weather days and things of this nature. What do you see as the major factor for some of these, or factors?
For the high school, Dr. Snyder's completely correct. I mean, that 28%, I mean, that just guides us.
Yeah.
I also agree, having been a high school administrator, that they're smart
Yes.
at the
I
high
agree.
school. I mean, intelligence comes in lots of different forms. And so I think it's getting them just situated. We're not seeing these absences out of our early college, high school kids as much. So as these academies keep growing 6th, 7th, 8th grade, all of a sudden we're gonna get a freshman class that has a pathway and a set focus that they're already invested in, that they're already interested in and passionate about. And so I think that's what it would be. I mean, students that want to go to school, students that want to go to the classes because they're finally focused on something, not just the old reading, writing, arithmetic textbook. The innovative, you know, let's not do the rows anymore. I think that in itself is going to be a huge difference.
They are more invested. Okay.
Okay? Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Bravo and then Ms. Guerra.
Can you go back to the slide where it shows the percentages by campus?
Yes, ma'am.
Right there. I'd like to comment on the high school percentage and on the middle school, because obviously there's two middle schools that we're having problems with, it's White and Shepherd. White more than Shepherd, obviously. Do we have, and I'm sure you do, a breakdown such at the high school of what grades are showing whether there's more absences? Is it the 9th, 10th, 11th
Yes,
grade?
I don't have those numbers with me, but I can say safely at the high school, it's our freshmen, especially our repeat freshmen. I mean, we already see that when you start losing interest or when you're behind, you're going to be frustrated, and who wants to go to a frustrating environment? And so where we start attacking those issues, that's what we're seeing.
So it's the freshmen,
Our overage kids.
overage kids.
Would you say
Is
it's
that what it is, is what you're saying? Because this is not the first year that we've done the pathway. This is like the second year, isn't it? That we've had the career paths besides the
foundation
early
program?
college, high school,
Right,
right?
actually, it's the third year.
The third year, so this isn't new. I mean, I guess the data is new because we had not seen it for
Right.
the first time. But, so is this, we can't say, well, it's because they don't have a pathway. These are
No.
ninth graders, eighth graders that are ninth graders that have a pathway that should be coming. So what is the problem?
But it's not those kids, it's not our early college kids that's the challenge. It's not the kids that are on the pathway. It's the kids that are 16, 17-year-old freshmen. They're still classified as freshmen, but they've been held back in previous grade level, you know, and so it's that repeat, what I think he calls them freshmores, that are, you know, that, and I think it's.
Because when you're repeating the same class also, I mean, we have a strict, I was an English teacher at the high school. You have a set curriculum for your English 1, your English 2, and when you're a repeat freshman, you're gonna get all of that again. And because you lost credit in that
Right.
class, you know, there's not that incentive. And I understand that this pathway isn't new necessarily, but the courses at the beginning of the high school level around freshmen are
They all have to
introductions.
take, right,
They're
they all
not,
have to take English.
but yes, there are definitely more issues. I mean, those root causes that I put in are just, you know, touching upon.
And I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know like first semester, the issues are with freshmen, second semester, the issues are with seniors. And so I know they implemented senior exemptions for final exams. I don't know if they were talking about going down. It's for all grade levels. So like if you only have, I don't know the rules, but like a certain number of absences, if you only have like one absence, you can, and a passing grade, you can exempt your final. So I know he put that in place this year. They also did, like on testing days, they tried to do dress-up days to get them to come, you know what I mean? So it would still be fun to come to school. With the testing day, that every time we had a test, like PSAT or whatever, it's like everyone else wasn't showing up. And so we finally Lee asked us to come and help monitor. That's what helped a lot of kids staying there, is that they still have their regular classes while freshmen were testing. But
Which
yeah,
actually was a positive, because
Right.
when they were able to go to class, their attendance went up.
Was
I
up,
mean, because
right.
all of their teachers were in the classroom.
Right. So any suggestion, like I said, Ms. Prado, at the beginning of this, you know, we need your help. We need everyone's help. We need to work together on this. We definitely do not have all the answers, but I do know that our principals are really trying. They are going to the homes, the teachers are calling. They're giving away bikes, they're doing incentives, they're doing dances, they're doing field trips. So anything that you have to suggest, we are all ears. We're all for it.
And I think I'm the only one that was here at the time. A while back, everybody else is in here. We actually, what they did at the high school level was got a dealership to donate a car.
I remember that.
And they had that car parked in the center of the campus for all the kids to see. Any student that had perfect attendance for that 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, got their name thrown into a hat. So at the end of the year, those students that had perfect attendance every 6 weeks, they had a chance to win a car. And it was enticing because they'd come in and see the car every day. So I think that's something that's bigger than just a bike for high school kids. So that might be something.
We'll find trees at the elementary and middle to give away, yeah, but that's something we'll definitely explore.
You know, I mean, I don't know what the data was back there, was it successful or not, because we didn't have data. But I would think, you know, kids, if I see a car and if I have to come to school every day and go and get a chance every 6 weeks, I'm going to do it. That might be
Definitely explore that.
We have a lot of dealerships here. Lots. Surely someone will tell me a car.
That's a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Getter.
My question had been to all about the incentives, so that one was answered. The second one, do we have any idea of how many students we reached, the repeaters or the older kids, how many of those students we reached and are now attending the academies? Or is their attendance at the academies low, or do we have any idea?
Which academies, ma'am? Which academies, I'm sorry?
Like the STEM, the new programs. the
No, I
STEM,
don't have that. I could look at that information. I don't have that of the ones that are, the fifth
Oh,
graders that are going
that are
there.
coming in.
Are we
Oh, we
reaching
don't have
any
it,
of
right.
those kids through those academies?
I haven't pulled
I'd
any
have to
data
look.
on
I'd
those
have to
that have
look.
excessive absences, but that's something that we can look at, because I already have a list of all the kids in which academies they're going to.
Maybe keep it in mind that next year we can visit that and see what that helps.
That like the chronic absenteeism in fifth grade. Absolutely.
Mr. Mongier?
Can we go to the recommendations, page 6? And the first bullet there, the district committee, can you tell me what kind of folks will be on that committee?
It would consist, like most of our committees, it would consist of principals, some teachers, central office staff, of course, and some parents, because we need the parent, I mean, it'd be a moot point for us to come up with solutions without the parent input. But that's what I envision the committee to consist of.
We're on track to start that beginning of the year.
Yes, sir.
I just want to highlight the last one, because I think there's a stark difference between the students, especially at high school, that like to play the system, just so they can kind of ration that out. And then those that maybe feel like they don't have a choice to come to school,
Exactly.
whether they're dealing with a mental illness or in their family they may take care of
Yes.
a younger
And
sibling.
we have those parents.
Yeah, and we have come across those. So I think it's great that you're going to get the counselors involved and some of the other folks in the district. because that's how we can solve some of those chronic problems. So I just want to say that's a really good point that you brought up there. So, if I think of anything, I'll be more than glad to pass it along.
Yeah, thank you.
And especially with the school finance the way it is, it's going to be really important to highlight that this lack of attendance really does stifle. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so the question I have is, I know you mentioned who's going to be on the committee. I'd like to see, I know we started a parent advisory group, so I'd like some of those folks to be on there. We did also start a student board, team board. I'd also like them to continue that and possibly be part of this committee. And I do like the plan that's laid out, and I hope that it's successful and that we, awareness brings change. And so I'm glad that y'all thought of a plan and some recommendations to start with. If we go to the slide for the campus percentage. So I know through the emails that we got weekly, Benavides was on top every week. What made them different than everyone else? What did we learn? What did they do right?
Well, the principal really got into it.
Well, and Dr. Saavedra also, you
Yeah.
can share what you also.
I also offered all principals that the winning principal for the school year, the schools that had the highest attendance, I was going to transfer 50,000 Southwest points so that they could take the two round trip tickets, basically. So Dr. Nahosa ends up winning those 50,000 points. And once he took off, because he led almost everything.
And he loved that trophy, we had an attendance
He
trophy.
got to the
It was
point where I think the others
hysterical.
actually gave up. They weren't going to catch up with him. But he did all sorts of activities. We actually talked to him. We're doing evaluations this week. We talked to him a lot about the different activities that they did. They monitored it every single day. They drew a lot of attention to it at the student level as well as the parent level, the teacher level. Some of the other schools that also did fairly well did a lot of that competition
They
among
did competition among
teachers.
classes.
So,
So good, that was good to hear. It was good to know, first of all, that we were being sent reports weekly. I did review them and saw, the differences and to see that Benavides was the competition there. It was nice to see that the staff and at the campus level, that they were really focused on the goals. And this is a constraint, mind you, but again, when we start focusing on what's best for students, change happens, right? And we become aware and we start implementing positive change. And so I really wanted to highlight that. And I think that's it. Okay, thank you. So then the next.
All right, good evening, everybody. So the next constraint progress measures, the superintendent will not allow the absent rate to increase or remain the same. 1.2, the teacher absent rate will not exceed 6% in the 2017-2018 school year. So this slide here, because this is something that we've just started measuring, we went back and looked at our data from 2016-2017 and compared it to 2017-2018. So we did a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and the end of the year. And so the blue line shows 16-17, and the red or orange line shows 17-18. So you'll see that the attendance rate, we were the same at the beginning, and then in the middle it separated, and at the end you can see a big difference there. So at the beginning in October in 2016-2017 it was 94%, and this year it was 93.6%. And then in January, it was 93.5, and then for 2016-2017, and then 2017-2018 was 94.25. And then in May, for 2016-2017, it was 92.75, and then it was 93.8 for the 17-18 school year. In the next slide, we did a yearly attendance average. So this is kind of hard because we're not apples to apples, because we had 611 teachers last year, and this year we had 552 teachers.
So what we did is we basically just charted it out and said, so a yearly absent average was 8.66% for the 16-17 school year, and for this year it was 8.89% for the 17-18 school year. So we've been talking about this with DEEC. We've gone and met with them, we presented the data to them, and so in July, we're gonna come back and present, where we're gonna add, ask that we change the local policy, DEC local, and we're gonna add some constraints to that. And basically what we're gonna say is, we're gonna ask that you guys approve that teachers cannot take off before a testing time period, during a testing time period, after testing time period, before an extended time off, holiday, 5 days before the beginning. 5 days was 5 days of the first school year and 5 days at the end that they can't be off. So these are just things we presented to DEEC. They were all in agreement that we do need to get this taken care of. We've also talked about incentives of how to get the employees to, just like with the students, how to get them to come to school, what can we do to get the teachers to actually be here every day? Because it's important that they're in the classroom and that instruction continues. So we have also talked about that as well. So we will be doing all of that in July. Any questions? Okay, board members, floor is open. Who would like to begin? Mr. Potter?
So I kind of correlate the teacher absence to the high school. We're almost 10% down in that area, but it's not a laughing matter. It's one of those situations where, just like we want the kids to want to come to school, we want the teachers to want to come to work. So are we identifying why we have almost a 10% absentee rate amongst teachers?
Well, this also includes any individuals who are out on FMLA. So we've included the whole entire bucket. We didn't separate them. So this is people who are using personal leave and local leave or state leave. So we haven't actually sat down with the teachers and said why are you not coming to work? But that is something that we can start doing, maybe going to the principals to say these are the teachers that are constantly missing. Can we talk to them and see what is the issue? Because like students, maybe there's something that we're not aware of that we need to help the teachers with.
And I do know, and I know Dr. Savannah and I received it, where if a teacher is chronically absent, they do give them write-ups of, this, you've been absent 4 days, you only get 10, just letter of concern, making sure. And I do know we've had principals in the past kind of, they're monitoring that, if we have somebody that's chronic, that's not, on leave or sick or things like that. And so I do know that they have documented and met with teachers if they see a pattern that continues, because that is a reason, excessive absences is a reason to not leave. So I do know principals have been monitoring that as well, and I know we've had before.
So I know that you just said that includes the FMLA or leave or whatever. But teachers already get, 5,
We
6?
get 5 state and 5 local days every year. Total of 10 days.
Okay, so does that 10% kind of represent more than those 10 days? I mean, that's obviously, is that above that 10-day, basically the?
Yes. We have some employees that take more than their 10 days.
I'm sorry, that's what you were doing. I didn't mean to.
Let us bring this report back. I don't agree with these calculations. I think we need to restudy these calculations. The percentages you see there are basically dividing the 552 teachers by the 6204 absences. The piece that's missing is that we need to multiply the 552 teachers times the number of school days, and then you divide that by the absences.
To get a percentage.
You might recall that months back we did something similar to this that ended up with a higher percentage of absences and so forth. I think we've repeated our mistake. Let us come back and look at this again. Okay.
So board members, I'm going to stop board speak. And if we can have this being recorded on the 20th.
Yeah, we'll come back on the 20th.
Okay, good. Thank you. So the next items are consent. Policy BE local states that the consent agenda shall include items of a routine and or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion unless a board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote. And I believe Dr. Saavedra has there been a recommendation on change?
Sorry, on number 8.
Yes. Because I don't know what the recommendation was. I know it wasn't stated on the form.
That's correct.
And so what has been that recommendation?
The recommendation as it pertains to the district's health insurance plan is that the district pursue a self-funded model, starting with the next year. The self-funded model, in our opinion, will actually save approximately $1 million this first year in insurance premiums that our employees are paying. I know we have representatives from Gallagher, the consulting group that we work with here, as well as members of our insurance committee, where these presentations were made. I'm going to call on J.C. Zamora to kind of walk you through this plan and explain why we feel that a self-funded model is appropriate, not only for the district, but quite frankly our employees, because they're the ones that primarily pay the premiums for this health insurance. J.C.?
Good evening. So the recommendation is to award the contract to Blue Cross Blue Shield. In evaluating the proposals, the committee came to the decision that Blue Cross Blue Shield had the best proposal with regards to the finance component, as well as to the availability of keeping our plan consistent. So we will not have to make any changes to the plan design, so all the benefits will stay the same for a year. And last year when we brought it to the board, not only did the premiums go up, but we also had to modify the benefits that were part of the plan. They were lessened, they weren't improved, it was a double negative. The plan benefits decreased, and on top of that, we increased the contribution of employees. This will be a year where everything stays the same. Moving to a self-funded plan, it's the only way to offer that. We did get proposals for fully insured plans. The increase as previously presented was that it would go up, I think it was 7%. So we would have had to pass that cost on to our employees, which would have added approximately $500,000 to the premium. We do have committee members here who, I did not vote on the plan as an administrator. The committee members are here present to take any questions that you may have as far as why they voted on it.
Okay, before we go that route, you've heard the recommendation, and so do I hear any board members who want to pull out consent items for discussion?
Number 8.
Number 8.
Number
Other
4.
ones?
Number 4, please.
Okay, were we going to? All right, so do I hear a motion to approve consent item number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6, and number 7 as presented?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second has been made by Mr. Rodriguez. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Ibarra, you have number 4. And let me read it. Approved Chromebook and iPad purchases for elementary blended learning campuses. It is a LSG item, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the 2 minutes. Go ahead.
My only question here is just that, like the master teacher campuses that we kind of, the MCL classrooms that we started out last year, and when we came in and asked for money to fund those, we got a little presentation on what those were about. I kind of know a little bit about the blended campus, but I would want to share what blended campus means for the two campuses and why we're wanting to invest this money on all this technology on those campuses. Just a brief presentation if we could, just kind of go over what that model is.
Do you want to talk through it, Scott?
Sure. So blended learning is a model of learning that incorporates technology, but it also incorporates more of a student-centered classroom. A lot of elements that are present in project-based learning are also present in the blended learning environment. And so we're proposing to make two campuses, Price and Armstrong, into kind of a model of blended learning for the district. We went and Mr. Diemans, our instructional coordinator, and I went and spoke with teachers of those campuses extensively. We met with them and already started a little bit of professional development with those teachers. There were some concerns for most campuses about what was going to be required, what was going to be expected of them. A lot of the things that they're doing already are reflected in the blended learning model. So it's kind of, we're pushing a model that is more kind of center-based. There's a lot of different ways to do blended learning. The classroom is one that you might have heard of, where students do the majority of their, excuse me, they do the majority of their learning at home through videos or things that teachers have posted online, and they come in and have a discussion in class about those things. That, of course, doesn't work quite as well at the elementary level. So what we're proposing is kind of a center-based, so that the teacher would split the classes into groups, smaller groups, and so they might have a group at a reading center, they might have another group doing some research on an iPad or on a Chromebook. They would have another group that would be sitting and meeting with the teacher and going over some of those things. It also kind of incorporates the technology in a way that it's not another thing to do. It's really trying to make the technology just another tool. And so one of the examples that we used with the teachers when we were talking to them was about students, and they read to the teacher or they read with the class, and the whole rest of the class hears that student. The student doesn't necessarily hear it themselves. And so in a blended learning model, that student might instead take an iPad and go to a corner and read and record themselves, and then be able to take that recording and meet with the teacher and reflect on how well they're reading and what kind of words they're messing up on and those kind of things. As just a way to, it's just a way to tweak that instruction that makes it more individualized for that student.
So in essence, creating more educational opportunities for kids. And we're going to try to extend this beyond these two.
I opened it up to all campuses, and I'll be honest, I was very, very picky about who could come forward with this. I wanted to make sure that this was not forced, that teachers wanted this. I think that, it can't be just something top-down. They want to, that they are already innovative in their instruction and in their small group instruction, where this would be an easy fit. And so Price and Armstrong really pushed hard. In fact, for a while, I was like, no, I don't know about, y'all sure y'all want to do both school, and teachers kept saying, no, yes, we really want to, So they really came back with both schools came back with a lot of enthusiasm to implement this. This could be our kind of launching of possible elementary academies. So we're going to try with these two schools and see, how this goes, and maybe it ends up being, those two end up being, that's their specialty. But I do know that the teachers are really excited about it. At both of these campuses, they have already the staff with that mindset of being innovative, and so I'm very confident that it will be very successful and will be implemented to fidelity.
So campus buy-in was awesome at those campuses.
Yes.
That
It had to be, otherwise I wasn't gonna spend money. Yeah.
Awesome. I know that it's a challenge, when they got a device in their hands at home and they can access information quicker than we can probably feed it to them in the classroom. So we got to be innovative, and I love love the model, and I hope it works to the fullest that we think it is.
Yes, sir.
That's all I got.
Okay, anyone else want to speak to that? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mr. Munguia. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, number 8, Mrs. Prado, approve the district's health insurance plan.
Thank you, Ms. Osterling. I have some questions.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Prado, this is not an LSG item, so it is going to be on the 2-minute.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I do have questions from Mr. Long, if he's here. And I will have a follow-up question for Ms. Payne if she's available.
If you would like, we do have a short presentation that kind of goes over the entire.
How long is the presentation?
It's 4 slides.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Okay, hi, I'm Nick Long from Gallagher Benefits. We are the district's consultant, and so we underwent a full RFP process this year, and we kept it very, very open. So what we asked the vendors to provide was both fully insured and self-funded proposals, stop loss, and pharmacy benefits. We received quotes in from 3 different vendors, and we received quotes both fully insured and self-funded. I'll start with the fully insured versions. We received 2 vendors actually quoted on that, Blue Cross Blue Shield, who's your incumbent vendor, and United Healthcare. After the best and finals and some negotiations, we got Blue Cross Blue Shield with an apples-to-apples plan down to $6.5 to $6.6 million, which is approximately $500,000 cost increase over what you have now, apples to apples. United Healthcare was much, much higher at $8.2 million, or $2.1 million more than that. Obviously, they're not in the running. If we go to the next page, we also looked at self-funded proposals as well. And this is very small, but what it boils down to is we looked at this from a very conservative standpoint. And the way we looked at it is, let's find a self-funded plan which we can allocate all the risk and fund the entire risk of the plan and pay that out of ourselves, pay that to ourselves, and then pay the plan back out from them. And so we want to make sure that we are accounting, fully accounting for all the potential costs. And so when you do that, Blue Cross Blue Shield as the TPA and using their network, using their stop loss, and Express Scripts through the Texas Educational Coalition came in with the most advantageous bid with an approximate savings of almost $1.1 million. And that is fully accounting for the entire risk, that is funding to the maximum. So the real advantage of this here is you would pay yourself, you pay into your own trust, the trust would be controlled and for the sole benefit of the employee at South San Antonio ISD. That would then pay out the fixed costs, it would pay out the claims, and at the end of the year, whatever is left over rolls to the next year. If the very worst happens, you are covered by purchasing 2 different kinds of insurance. The first being individual stop loss, which caps the loss on any individual claim. Guy walks out, gets hit by a bus, it's $1 million claim, it caps that. And then the aggregate stop loss, which is exactly what it sounds, it caps the total amount that the plan can spend in any given year. And so we have funded completely to the aggregate max limit, which means once that limit is hit, Blue Cross Blue Shield will start paying the claims. And we have fully paid all the fixed costs as well. And then that will leave a $1.1 million surplus. That $1.1 million surplus will be used to build the fund for the district for future years. So there will be a day, maybe next year, maybe 5 years from now, the claims turn very bad. That just, you keep rolling snake eyes and you get multiple premature babies or cancers, things like that. And in that time, we will use that money to stabilize the rates for the employees. Because if not, when you're fully insured, and in San Antonio market, we only have 3 options, 3 or 4 legitimate options. You have Blue Cross, you have United, you have Aetna, and then Humana is kind of in the market, kind of not in the market anymore. But so that leaves us at the whim of the insurance companies. And so when you're fully insured, the insurance company wants their profit, and they need that profit. And then on top of that, the taxes. And so the taxes, even though you're a government entity, have to be paid to the state of Texas, have to be paid to the federal government. And so when you take into account the taxes and the profit margins, that's where the savings is to be had. going self-funded because we can eliminate and minimize that to the best extent possible. The other part of that recommendation was to move to the TEC, the Texas Educational Co-op, which is administered by Express Scripts. So what that is a grouping of 100, a little over 100, about 110,000 Texas educational employees from various school districts that purchase pharmaceuticals together. And so when you are purchasing pharmaceuticals, it is all about what can you commit to me. When you go try to negotiate with Merck or Pfizer, South San Antonio cannot do anything that gets their attention. But over 100,000 Texas school employees going together to negotiate, that does get their attention. And so there are some very large districts in this cooperative, and we all work together to purchase it. Everybody's plan design is different. Your co-pays might be different, from the district next door. But when we're approaching the market as one unit. Inside of that, Gallagher is the auditor of that program, in which we receive a fee for auditing all the claims inside of that, which is $1.75 per script that comes through. And we also provide the disease management services as well. So our pharmacists will intercede on behalf of the employee. And that comes to things like, oftentimes the doctor will say, you need 100 milligrams of this. And the doctor doesn't know how much the pills cost. They're just saying you need 100 milligrams of X pill. Well, a 100 milligram pill could literally be 10 times the amount of 250s. And so what we will intercede on behalf is saying, okay, we understand you need 100 milligrams, but if you take 250 milligram pills, the district can save this much. And because the district can save that much, we will give you a lower copay for your slight inconvenience. And so it's about finding ways for win-wins on everybody's behalf. It's not about interceding and telling the doctor what to do. It's just about making it as efficient for the employee and the district.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Klaus?
We didn't get a copy of this. This first time we've seen this. I guess it's someone. Is this available?
This is the art.
Is there reason we didn't get it prior to the meeting?
No, I apologize. We were going to submit the contract for Blue Cross Blue Shield. We were unable to get it. In our conversations with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they were requesting that we get 2 items approved before we get the final contract. One is the stop loss agreement, and the other is the benefit program application. Once those 2 items were completed and signed and approved, then we get the final agreement to present to the board on next board meeting.
And that's the recommendation for this evening, that those 2 items be approved this evening. That's the only action the board will be asked to take. The actual contract itself will come in 2 weeks.
Which is, I think is good, but obviously this was prepared in advance. So this
Yes.
is what I'm asking, why we didn't get ahead of time.
So this was an evaluation of the RFP. I didn't know traditionally that this came to. So if it's something that the board wishes to have on all RFPs, as far as the rubric or the metric, as far as their scoring, we can definitely start submitting that with all RFPs.
I think it
But
would be
that's
good for backup to see, because we can see the various costs for the different vendors. And of course, it's on the recommendation of the superintendent which vendor we're going with. Don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of this. I think the self-funded is going to be a good program for us because it's going to save us some money. But I do have a couple of questions for Mr. Long, if I may. Is there a contract the district can have between you, Gallagher Services, and the district?
We have one.
Do you have one in place?
Yes, ma'am.
We don't, do you have that contract?
It was presented to the board last,
Is that the one in March? I think in March you came to us, because HUB started in January.
Correct.
It was supposed to be in February, it was delayed, and then in March it came to us. But I don't remember seeing a contract as a backup or anything. But nevertheless, I have questions on your contract. You just said that you're going to be getting $1.75 per prescription. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and that's plus your fee, and your fee is $55,000 for the year, correct? So I'd like to see in your contract, are there any other percentages or fees or commissions that you're going to be getting as well?
There is not. So according to the scope of services, we're completing the entire scope that was presented at a fixed amount of $55,000. And then the $1.75 per script is for the enhanced services of the audit and the pharmaceutical intervention services.
And could anyone tell me how many prescriptions, what was the history of our prescription last year? How many were actually claimed for prescriptions? I mean, because we have, what, 1,100 employees that are being insured that do prescriptions. And if they get a prescription once a month or every 2 months,
The average is about 1.2 per person per month.
that's a lot of employees. So if you multiply that by $1.75, that's a lot of money.
I think that's, in this off the top of my head, it was somewhere in the $28,000 to $30,000.
Average to 55,000,
Yes.
correct? Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for you. And as I said, I think the self-funded is a good program if it's going to save us money. But I also understand, and Dr. Saavedra, in his answer to my questions that I asked, had said that there was no risk for the district. Is that correct?
We have fully accounted for all the risks. So yes, there's risk in everything if it is not set up properly, but we have taken the steps to account for all those risks by buying the reinsurance and by properly funding the plan to the maximum.
Absolutely. And I think without the stop-loss coverage and without the TLO coverage, we would really be, have to worry because there's always...
Rather, you have 1 minute.
Okay, there's always illnesses. My last minute will go with Ms. Payne. Thank you, Mr. Long. Ms. Payne, I just have one question. It's my understanding, Mr. Zamora has informed me, or Dr. Saavedra, that you will be managing the program?
That is correct. I am familiar with the model. I have was overseeing that at Edgewood ISD.
Now, was that program successful at Edgewood?
Honestly, no, it wasn't. Honestly, it was not. They had a totally different model. The model did not have the stop losses in place, the parameters in place that are being built into this. Similar to a workers' compensation, which the district is self-funded. So they have parameters. You can't pull monies and use it for other transfer. The parameters are going to be there, establishing a bank, all of that. That was not clear-cut in the other.
Do you feel comfortable with the proposal that's being presented to us?
I do.
That's all I have for you. Thank you, Ms. Payne. Thank you.
Are there any other board members that have any comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, do I hear a motion?
What was the recommendation? Or what was-
The recommendation is that the board tonight approve the stop loss agreement.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
TLO.
It's the BPA. The benefit program application.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's what you're approving tonight only. You're not approving the final contract.
Okay, I move to approve.
Okay, a motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second has been made by Mr. Munguia. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so now we're on the discussion and possible action. And before we begin, let me read it. Discussion and possible action to approve the order adopting the tax rate for the school year 2018-2019. We do have public comment and comments. Before you begin, we can have our lawyer talk about the standard.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Saavedra. This portion of the agenda is a public hearing for the purposes of adopting the tax rate. But the normal rules of public comment will apply, 3 minutes. Can't attack people, normal rules of decorum, and all that good stuff.
You could have sung it all over with just those 5 words. Or I could have spelled it back to you, because I can't remember. Can we start?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Osterdean, members of the board, Dr. Saavedra, I'm Tom Cummings, and I'm representing South San ART. You will be voting tonight on a tax rate and an order for a tax ratification election, or TRE. South San AFT urges you to vote yes on both items. and move forward with it. That has been our position for over 10 years, and we're pleased to see it is finally being considered. While it's billed as a local tax issue, the bulk of the money is going to come from the state. So for years, by not having the TRE, you sent that, your tax money, your state money, to other school districts, which I'm sure they appreciate, but nevertheless, it's time we have it in our district. South San is falling further and further behind its neighbors, and it's time to stop that trend. To continue opposing the TRE would be a giant disservice to the South San students. Again, the funding gap is an achievement gap. There's only so much teachers can do with inadequate funding. Do not abandon the students, vote yes on the tax rate and the election as presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Okay, Dr. Saavedra, discussion of possible action to approve the order adopting chapter for school year 2018-2019.
Yes, ma'am. This is a recommendation that the board approve the setting of the maintenance and operation tax rate at $1.17, as well as continue the debt service tax rate at 41.15 cents for a total tax rate of $1.58 and 15 and a percent after that. It's 1.5815, which is effectively an 11.8% increase in the tax rate. If the board approves this tax rate as recommended, it will require that the board also call for a tax ratification election, which will be a different motion, different action. And the voters in the community will decide whether they agree with the board's action of setting this tax rate as recommended.
Okay. So board members, this is not a Lone Star governance item, so the 2-minute does apply, and the floor is open. Who'd like to begin?
Madam Chair, I just have one question, and it's for legal counsel, if I could, on this. Counsel, my question is pertaining to section 255.003 of the Texas Election Code and the Texas Ethics Commission rule. The code generally says that any amount of advocacy is impermissible. I think we all should know that. So for an example, if an employee of this district on school district time, school district property, and at an official school district function, for an example, I'll think of a function. Let's say the senior class breakfast. If that employee at that group gathering of students, which is the senior class breakfast would be seniors, tells the assembled students there, vote for the TRE, would that be a violation of the law?
So when it comes to supporting a proposition or lobbying for a proposition, school district employees cannot do that during working time at an official school function. You could inform people, students included, that there may be potentially an election, let them know the date, let them know the issue, but you cannot state vote for it or don't vote for it.
Okay, thank you, counsel. That's all I have, Ms. Osterdean.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, do I hear a motion?
We need that special motion, which is in your sheet for any board member who wants to make a motion and the recommendation to fold the letters there that need to be in the motion required by state law.
Is the resolution?
No,
It's the same language you
yeah,
read.
you just read it, but it needs to be in a motion.
So I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.5815, which is effectively an 11.80% increase in the tax rate. So a motion has been made by Mrs. Osterdean. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second has been made by Mr. Montia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Counsel, is Is the tax rate the item where it is required if you're going to have a tax increase, or is it the TRE that requires a 5-member vote?
I'm not aware of any 2/3 vote that's required for that item.
I think there is, but I'm not, for clarification, I'm not sure if it's the election order itself, or if it's, I think it's the tax rate increase when it has to do with the tax ratification election.
I mean, we could double check that, but I'm not aware of that proposition. How many people vote? Can we have a roll call vote? If you don't mind?
Yes, okay, so roll call vote, those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed, raise your hand.
So that is 5-2, right? No.
4-2.
4-2. That's 2/3. We're still good if that requires,
It requires 5.
no, it's 2/3
Those present.
of those present.
Okay.
If that is the requirement.
Okay, on there. Would you check that off?
I will.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then the next item is discussion and possible action to approve the order for a tax ratification election. Dr. Saavedra.
Yes, ma'am. As a result of the board setting the tax rate for next year at $1.58, whatever we said, 1.5. And the fact that the M&O tax rate goes beyond the $1.04 that we presently have, it requires that the voters of the community approve the tax rate. And it requires the board to call for a tax ratification election. So the voters of this community can decide if in fact the M&O tax rate goes up to $1.17. So it is recommended that the board call for this tax ratification election. The election that we're recommending as administration is that the election will be set for Tuesday, August 14, 2018, a date that is beyond 30 days from the adoption of this tax rate. And are we required to read the resolution? No, the order rather?
No, sir, but the order that is in the packet, and you are going to recommend to include one more polling place. So,
Well, thank you. That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Castillo. The original recommendation that went out to the board, the original order called for the voting places for the general election to be this administration building as well as the high school. But it also called for the early voting to occur only in this administration building. The staff is recommending that both the administration building and the high school be utilized for voting, the voting date, as well as early voting. So that there is a change in that order.
Okay. So again, this is not a Lone Star Governance item. The floor is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak, comment, or question? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Is it just a motion for the order for the TRE?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
It is just a motion to approve as presented with the recommendation.
Okay, I make a motion to.
Okay, so Mr. Rodriguez has made a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made by Mr. Munguia. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mr. Ibarra, and the time is 8:04 p.m. Thank you.
I think